Well, from a rainy Istanbul morning, good morning to all. We are healthy, so I don't believe that there is no reason for us to complain as long as we are healthy. Before yielding the floor to you, let me remind to our audience once again, if you have questions to our speaker, you can write your questions from the question and answer section. And at the end of his speech, I hope he will be answering your questions. Without further ado, I would like to yield the floor to Mr. Ugur. Distinguished representatives of the steel industry, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our 15th SteelOrbis annual conference on new horizons in steel markets. For the second time, we are sponsoring this conference, and on behalf of my company, I would like to extend my gratitude and this deepest respect to our audience and participants, and we would like to thank SteelOrbis for providing us this opportunity to come together. Of course, we will start with the ads, and then after this video, we will continue with my speech. Well, in many platforms, we have been expecting the end of 2020, but we are coming to the end of 2020. But most probably we will remember this year. This year is comprised of earthquakes, fire, pandemic. It created a totally new living form, a living style. Most probably when we see daughters or grandsons, they will speak about that they can actually hug each other as a reward. We couldn't get on planes as we travel all the time. Most probably many of our participants even couldn't see their offices as of March. Most of us have been working from our houses, but of course there are for example, good points to that. For example, my 3-year-old son understands that he has a father because, in the previous year, if we said to each other that we couldn't see each other face to face in a physical environment, nobody would believe us. Nobody would believe that we will come together in a virtual platform, in a virtual environment. in the previous year, we were speaking about the global challenges and changes in the steel industry, but we wouldn't expect such a year. We couldn't know that the 2020 budgets will be affected by the pandemic. I mean, we have encountered with a totally different world, which we didn't expect at all. So in my speech, I will be speaking about how 2020 has passed. And of course, without knowing what will happen, I will try to present my forecasts for 2021. I mean, 60% of the drivers in the steel industry, in the steel journey, let me use that analogy, are the Chinese drivers. But thanks to them, although the road was bumpy, we actually have gone through a difficult journey. Many of our passengers have been negatively affected by that, but the journey at the end of the day was all the same quite nice thanks to the Chinese improvement. Well, at the beginning of the pandemic, we thought that the pandemic will be limited to China, but right now we see that this is not the case because the Chinese solved that problem within 4 or 5 months. And as we approach to the end of this year, we have seen that the Chinese grew 5% in terms of consumption and 10% in terms of production. And there aren't many countries who actually grew, and Turkey is one of them. And Turkey has grown by 3 or 4%. Vietnam, Iran, Egypt are among the countries whose market grow, but the big steel producers have recessed remarkably. I mean, as the global trade was, the global market was declining by 2%. India, Japan, and United States of America, and their markets declined by 15 to 20%. And although, despite many protectionist measures, the North American market decreased by 17%, and the European markets have recessed as well. And all of a sudden, we became the 8th biggest producers in the steel industry. And we even surpassed Germany, but right now we have only 5 tons of difference. But if we can protect our stability, on a permanent basis, Turkey can become the biggest European producer, steel producer, because we know that the current situation of the European steel producers are very bad. I mean, in 2015, if we put our 120 million tons of export aside, so if we make our calculations based on 60 million, there is a reduction by 40 million. So let me correct myself. This is 40 million of reduction from the Chinese exports, which is equal to 2 years of Turkish exports, by the way. So for the first time, for the last 25 years, we have exported for the first time to the Chinese market as the Colakoglu Metalurji. So we found ourselves new markets, but despite everything, we couldn't reach to our best market figures. I mean, when we compare with the last year, our market has recessed by 7%. And with comparison to the best years, of course, our market has declined by 15%. As you know, on 15th of November, the ASEAN countries have undersigned a free trade agreement, the Southeastern Asian countries. As a result of that, the trade will be much more liberalized in those countries. So the Japanese and the Korean producers most probably will manufacture even more, and it will have certain impacts on our market. When you take a look to the total production, you can see that there has been a reduction by 20%. I mean, the United States of America and the European markets have implemented protectionist measures which have impacted the Turkish markets as well. Our total export to US and Europe will be between 6 to 7 million tons. But if we take a look to the best years, it should have been 10 or 11 million tons. I mean, without protectionist measures, Turkey has the capacity to export to 13 million tons to those markets. So, in a nutshell, I can say that we only realized half of our potential this year. And within the current scenario, we cannot expect a better result for the upcoming years if we shouldn't expect worse. As you know, the Europe targeted Turkey in their sanctions, and they issued a trial with regards to subsidies, and they are trying to set barriers in front of the Turkish market. And the United States, the Americans are also adding additional measures. And to our steel bars, they are implementing the dumping actually sanctions, and they are violating their own laws for the sake of protecting their own producers. That's why we should actually go for the court. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, we are winning those battles, those trials, but during that time frame, our market is negatively affected. I mean, there are certain measures against the imports, but still the import rates in Turkey is increasing. I don't want to make more comments on that topic, but many years people have been thinking and alleging that the tax were setting a barrier in front of the imports against the imports, but this is not the case. I mean, when we actually increase the tax, the imports should have been reduced and should have been declining, but this is not the case. I mean, I have mentioned this last year, but the hostile attitude of the European countries against Turkey increased even, and we couldn't even respond to that. And certain decisions that we have taken so far provided additional advantages for the Europeans. So they actually have taken decisions in favor, in favor of themselves, and we have also taken decisions in favor of the European markets. So in the post pandemic period, everybody will try to recover their wounds and heal their wounds, and most probably the protectionist measures will be in effect. Many countries have been criticized due to the fact that they didn't take the necessary measures, and as a result, in the post-COVID-19 period, more populist policies will be taking place. I mean, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, we couldn't travel. We limited all of our activities. We are as if we are fasting. You know, as people are fasting, they are preparing themselves for, the time that they are going to break their fast. As a result, the second half of the next year might be quite interesting and might bring along many opportunities. If the situation goes on like this, we might be seeing another 2008 scenario in the upcoming year. So in the short term, I'm quite optimistic about the global markets, and I hope my forecasts will be true so that we will all win together. So as I made the Chinese driver analogy, they geared up, they increased their speed, and with the business as usual scenario, we will be going on well. But if the Chinese driver actually put his foot on the brakes, then most probably we will be crashing out of the windows of the car. So we should actually take the necessary precautions so that we should prevent certain accidents. What should we do then as the Turkish steel producers? One of the biggest bottleneck for the Turkish steel industry is that we lack the vision. I mean, we should set forth our vision and we should target certain figures. I mean, China today actually started losing its position as an exporter country and becoming an importer country. I mean, with only a single decision of Trump, we have lost our 20% of steel bar export. I mean, we have actually found new markets, but unfortunately, the European export opportunities for us is under jeopardy again. If the European Union is putting additional measures in terms of, I mean, increasing the taxes, then what will happen to the Turkish steel producers? We should think about it. Because the European Union steel industry is trying to survive, we cannot even say that it is a European steel industry because ThyssenKrupp has to shut down their facility. They couldn't even sell them. I mean, in order to, sell their facilities, many companies are, for example, delegating their facilities free of charge, for example, in Romania. I mean, we cannot expect that the European Union will have a positive attitude towards the Turkish steel industry as they are trying to survive. But what will we be doing? One of the most important topics in the steel market is the carbon release. As you know, Eurofair is lobbying in Brussels for the carbon tax. But what will Turkey do? What are our long-term plans? Because many producers are committing themselves to reduce their carbon release by 50% by 2030, and they claim that by 2050 they will be carbon free. I mean, the Chinese also committed themselves to those targets, and the Russians have a plan. But what kind of a policy should we follow? I mean, one of the contractors have stated me that, I mean, dollar is 7.5 rather than 8 Turkish liras, but your steel bar prices are the same, and they say that the Ukrainian, imports should be provided, but they have no idea about the raw material prices and how the raw material prices are increasing. And many people, for example, say that they cannot find the cold steel sheets, and they say that let's get rid of the exports. But they have no idea that the manufacturers are working with the low capacities, and that is the problem. So rather than discussing the problems, everybody is trying to get results in favor of their interests. That's what we are doing at the moment in the market. But we have no idea what price the countries with the low manufacturing capacity will pay. For many years, I have been involved in the 5-year development plans in Turkey. But we are in need of a long-term vision rather than trying to win the day for our short-term interest. Well, of course, being the eighth biggest producer in the global market is really important, but what matters is not being one of the biggest producers, but what matters is the sustainability. There are many problems that we should discuss and that we should overcome and solve. That's why we should come together and we should brainstorm together. It is high time we did that. As Colakoglu Metallurgy Company, in 2020, we had a very nice year. although we have to stop our regular deliveries to the United States of America due to the Trump's decision, and we have to decrease our actually quantity going to the European Union. And unfortunately, there has been increases in the imports due to the free trade agreements. Despite all these, we will close this year without any loss in terms of our production. In the first half of this year, although the consumption rates decreased a little, we have found ourselves new markets, new clients and consumers. Despite the propagandas that from the electric arc furnace you cannot produce high quality steel, we have given them the best actually answer. Cold galvanized steel producers have started working with us. In terms of HCLA quality, we have started producing many materials on a regular basis. Many of the high quality products are being manufactured by us on a regular basis, by the way, which were claimed that they are not being produced in Turkey. And we have commissioned our new facility, and we have also tested our IF quality, and we have cooperated with our consumers, and we have received their confirmation about the quality of our products, of course. And we have started, producing the stainless steel products, although it has been initiated, in a postponed fashion due to pandemic. Stainless steel arc furnaces are slightly different, and our furnaces are not like this, but 180 tons of stainless steel cast have been increased to 250 tons. So, as we took the first step, we have broken the world record. And once again, I'd like to thank my colleagues on that regard. In order to provide materials to automobile sector, we have received ITAF 16,949 certificates, and our production capacity will be focusing to those those sectors. Among the ISO top quality companies, we were ranked 13th place, and we also would like to preserve our award as the highest quality steel producing company in Turkey. But at the same time, we are trying to provide the best working conditions to our employees rather than inflicting damage to our environment. We are trying to protect our environment rather than creating waste. We are trying to recycle our waste, and we are trying to create added value to our customers, and we are not sacrificing from our quality. At the same time, we are trying to become a competitive company. This is our target for the long term. Hopefully, by 2021, we will not be using anymore this word pandemic. I'm sick of this word, and hopefully we will step towards a better year. Thank you so much for your patience, and I wish all of you a healthy day ahead. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Uğur. Thank you so much for this nice presentation. You have underlined very important topics. The lack of vision is a really important topic in the sector. Well, hopefully the necessary studies, necessary steps will be taken in that regard. Let me continue with the question. I have a question by myself. And once again, I'd like to remind to our audience, if you have questions, you can write your questions to the question and answer box so that we can share it with our speaker. Let me ask the first question though. As you mentioned in your speech, ICRP agreement, I mean the free trade agreement in the Asia. As you know, there was this Trans-Pacific agreement being discussed during the Obama term, but during the Trump term, I mean the America weighed from that agreement, but the China actually filled this gap, this vacuum. I mean, for the first time, China is actually under, if I'm not mistaken, by the way, China is under signing such a multilateral agreement. Generally, China has bilateral agreements. Of course, there are other countries like Japan and Korea, which are traditional American allies, which have undersigned this agreement. Are you expecting that the United States of America will lobby on those traditional allies so that the agreement will be distorted? What will be the reaction of the America? Well, unfortunately, I couldn't hear your question due to the connection problem, most probably. So I have difficulties understanding what you are trying to say, but as far as I understand your question, you would like to learn about the American response to this issue. Well, of course, can you hear me right now? Well, most probably there is a problem with the connection, but I really don't want to make a comment on that. Well, if you hear my answer, let me repeat once again. The United States of America, I mean, most probably a policy resembling to the times of Barack Obama will be, of course, followed by the current government if there are no action coming from Mr. Trump, as the conspiracy theory suggests. So most probably there will be a positive outlook. Well, there are questions from our audience, by the way. There is an anonymous question. Well, what kind of a precaution you are taking against the commercial risks and the commercial receivables? Well, we are not making our sales with certain terms. I mean, we are taking warranties if we are, making our sales with certain terms. I mean, this is a company policy. I mean, if you if you feel comfortable, you can do forward sales, but this is a company policy. Ms. Tülin Doğan asked the question. On the short term, you have stated that you are optimist for the steel sector. If you think that the European Union will impose additional tax, do you think what kind of an alternative the Turkish steel producers can find among USA, China, and European Union? Well, at the end of the day, the Turkish market is consuming 30 million tons, and we are producing slightly more than that figure. But Turkish market should exist in the global picture at the end of the day. And we have been seeing many changes on that regard. In terms of the product quality, I can say that the Turkish industry is improving its quality, and I'm sure that in the short and long term, this will continue to be so. So right now, Turkey is focusing more on high quality products rather than the low quality products. But once again, I would like to reiterate that as the China is reducing and creating a gap by its reduction, it will definitely open us new markets and new opportunities. Despite all those protectionist measures, I mean, just like the pool analogies, I mean, on one side the pool will be emptied, from the other side it will be filled. I mean, there are many markets which are left open for further opportunities as China is going out of those markets. So, I mean, we are seeing that on the midterm, most probably everything will be going back to normal. I mean, the Europeans might take political decisions, but the Americans are also taking political decisions, and we will definitely protect our rights, and hopefully the authorities will support us on that regard. Alper Baloğlu asked a similar question indeed with regards to the protectionist measures. You have answered this most probably, but what would you like to say about the normalization possibility with the Biden government? Can we say that a further normalization, maybe the protectionist measures will be eased? Well, in the short term, I am not expecting such kind of a normalization, but first, they have to increase their consumption levels. I mean, in North America, the sector is not very good. I mean, they are in a recessionary process, but in the short term, we are not expecting huge changes in terms of the protectionist measures. Well, I mean, Steel Manufacturers Association President Philip Bell will be with us to discuss this topic, and Matt Nolan, who we know very well. They will discuss those issues and we will see what they will discuss. With your permission, last question. Dr. Hussein Soykan asked a question. On October, the China was a net exporter. And when we think about the highly increasing scrap prices, what will be your expectation for the manufactured products in the first quarter of 2021? Well, as you know, the radical changes are taking place at the beginning of the Chinese year. So most probably, I mean, maybe this is a wishful thinking, but this will be the case for the upcoming year. So we are not expecting huge and radical changes coming from the Chinese market. But I mean, the globe should, I mean, increase its production because we have fasted so long, and most probably next year by June, the pandemic will not be, hopefully, a huge problem in our lives. I mean, hopefully, a new era will be starting after June, and hopefully, we will have an open buffet after so many months of fasting, and we will have a chance to realize many things that we have postponed for a long time. And of course, this recessionary phase, which had been going on for a long time, will bring about many opportunities. And most probably, the negative interest rates will definitely bring along new opportunities, and that I do believe that the prices will be increasing not only for steel but many commodities. But I also have to preserve my reservation. If the China breaks, then it will be a huge accident for all the passengers. The next question is from CFA Steel, and Kazuo Mike Fujisawa asked a question. Well, he is pointing to our concern. Does Turkey have an FTA with EU? If so, why does EU impose sanctions on Turkey's steel export to EU? Yes, please. Well, I, by the way, have to also answer to your email. Well, every year we have a chance to speak with him. Wonderful question. Well, we should ask this question to ourselves indeed. I mean, do we have a FTA with EU? Yes, we have. But what kind of rights that FTA bring to each parties? I mean, we should question it. I mean, we should repeat it in all platforms because, I mean, we have undersigned an FTA, but the requirements of the FTA is not being fulfilled. I mean, as you know, in 1952, the main philosophy of those FTAs founded the European Union. I mean, for many years, they have benefited a lot from this free trade agreement. I mean, it's just like a football game. I mean, they have scored 20 goals, but the next half they are trying to change the rules. I don't want to, make many comments. We have to stand for our rights. I mean, as you know, I mean, the United States of America are making additional, I mean, taxes because they do the calculations wrong. Every year we are going to the court, we are winning the cases and we are winning the trials, but they are persisting not to, well, act according to those laws, but we win it, but they are abusing the situation. Fujisawa, thank you so much for this nice question. We have to ask this question to ourselves. Why? Why they are not abiding by the rules?
Esra Oğuz Sarıkaya from Fairtrade has a question. After this pandemic, during this pandemic, do you think the steel manufacturers have been able to act in union? What was the positive or negative impact of the process? In Turkey, acting in union is not a culture. We like competition. It's more attractive for us. But I think this culture is developing. Now, the suppliers are more able to come together and develop policies, and in the future, this will be better. Because in the past, we have done many things which were thought impossible. We were able to encourage ourselves to do them. And our object, I hope in the future, this will be better. This will be improved further. So if we do that, the main issue will not be growth, it will be sustainability. An anonymous question about the markets. A question about the scrap prices. Today, there was an increase by 150 Turkish liras and the prices reached 2,795 Turkish liras. Will the prices go up? Yes, this will be good for us. If it goes up, it will be good for us. But in the current circumstances, maybe we will be talking about $400. Am I hopeful? No, because the prices increasing is not important. The value chain in the value chain, the most important thing is the profitability of the businesses. Because if you don't make profits in your sales, it doesn't make sense because the rates are negative for the bankers. Buying it for $200 will not make sense for you if you're making only 10 liras. But everything aside, I think the prices will be going up. Thank you very much. If you allow me, I will ask a question, something on my mind. During this pandemic, well, success is a relative term, but in your opinion, considering the successful companies in this supply chain, who have been more able to recover this pandemic? What kind of lessons have we drawn from this period? Well, there is a difference between the initial phase of the pandemic and the current phase because we were inexperienced. We had many questions in our minds. We had many concerns. In the using industries, there were disruptions. Some came to a standstill. But as I mentioned earlier, we are familiar with these challenges. When we are calm, we can act more reasonably. We can use our reason to act without panic. So during the initial period, we have been successful and we are doing fine now. And I'm really bored with the pandemic. We have been discussing this for about a year and still it's something that we don't know a lot about. And today, some people say that there are 30,000 cases. Some people say the numbers are rigged, but this is only the 3% of the global population have been infected. Still, 97% of the population are healthy. And it is said that 75% of the cases are asymptomatic. And sometimes we identify some cases, but the patient doesn't know because they don't have any symptoms. So it's the worst thing to panic and to manage this badly. And in April and in May, we had some concerns because particularly there were some uncertainties in our export destinations, but later things went well and we found ways of maintaining our operations in a healthy way, how to protect our workers from the pandemic. We focused on these problems instead of making plans for the future. I see that all stakeholders in the industry have been successful in this period, and I believe in the future this will be managed in a better way because of our past experience. But it has also brought some things. This is not only about the pandemic. In recent years, as we shifted from globalization to localization, there has been a change. This is why we need to develop this culture of working together and find ways of solving problems together. I think it will be more important to focus on that. Thank you very much. We had time until 11:30. I guess you have a meeting to attend. Yes, for the last 2 days, we have been working on our budget and we don't know. We are trying to make plans without knowing what tomorrow will bring. This is life. Thank you very much for sparing your time, for being with us today. I hope you will be safe. And next year we will be physically together. Thank you.